We're one of the biggest contract candle manufacturers in the country. We employed 14 people manufacturing candles mainly.
You'd think this candle-making powerhouse in the southern highlands of New South Wales would have done well in the pandemic as hoarders stocked their cupboards for a dystopian future. But as retailers closed down, there was no one to sell them to the public.
We couldn't produce candles anymore. We had nowhere to send them, so we had to stand our guys down. So I was walking around the factory and I thought, what can we do to contribute? And I realised we had about 10,500ml pump bottles. We had machines to fill them, we had people to fill them, we had the premises to fill them, we just didn't have the hand sanitizer formula. So we developed a pipeline made out of PVC. We were up and running with this within about 2 days.
The Advanced Manufacturing Growth Centre, set up by the federal government in 2015, was linking thousands of factories around the country to rapidly produce protective gear and hand sanitizer.
It was bedlam. It was bedlam. We had bottles coming out of our ears.
In 4 days, the factory had completely switched over to hand sanitizer.
Small to medium-sized businesses or manufacturers in this country are uniquely suited to that because most of our production runs are relatively small and we're always chopping and changing depending on customer needs and demands.
It's this agility that could offer a competitive advantage in the future of Australian manufacturing, a sector that government and industry both see as key to driving our economic recovery.
In principle, manufacturing is doing great and the COVID crisis has shown that. What we're lacking in Australia is scale. We have 45,000 manufacturers and 95% employ 20 or less people. Just imagine the potential we can unleash if half of them double their workforce.
Cars were a central plank of our post-war manufacturing base, received massive government support.
Paul Keating visited Holden's Port Melbourne plant.
Mr Howard inspected the factory.
Right up until this moment in December 2013.
Join with the Acting Prime Minister and the Government in calling on Holden to come clean with the Australian people about their intentions here. Either you're here or you're not.
The last of 7.6 million Australian-built Holdens comes to the end of the line.
Technology, a much lower exchange rate and the sudden loss of access to export markets has given a new competitive environment to Australian manufacturing. No one's talking about going back to the assembly lines of the Holden era or putting up tariff barriers again, but COVID-19 has shown Australian manufacturing to be both nimble and competitive.
Reshoring the manufacturing here will create jobs. Putting tariffs and taxes on imports won't do the job. All it'll do is increase the cost of raw materials, which will then increase the finished product to the end consumer.
Tanks are designed for the transport of high consequence liquids, so aggressive corrosive liquids.
Yeah, we've got to pump these out now.
Omni-Tanker is at the cutting edge of advanced Australian manufacturing. Its carbon fibre tanks are both designed and made here and sold to buyers in Australia, the United States and Europe.
We're in the order of 60, 65 people at the moment. We're growing.
The company needs to hire the brightest engineers to develop its patented designs.
Polar opening's all good.
But the company also needs a workforce of skilled tradespeople.
More time than the ISO frame.
Who are actually proving much harder to find.
So if you look at Australia's academic output, if you like, or its training institutions' output, the universities are top level and our TAFEs are really struggling. The ability still to manufacture, prototype and manufacture products is critical. If you lose that, then you lose a lot of the ability to take conceptual design through to the real thing.
There's going to be a temporary halt, at least, to the intake of temporary workers. And again, that also provides us an opportunity to make sure we do better in investing and enhancing skills of our domestic labour market.
The company sources as much raw material in Australia as it can, but the crucial ingredient, carbon fibre, isn't really made here. And the reason why speaks to one of the biggest hurdles standing between Australia and a manufacturing renaissance.
Carbon fibre production is extremely complex and energy intensive.
Energy could be almost the critical factor in manufacturing after this pandemic.
The Grattan Institute's Tony Wood says Australia's unique potential for cheap, renewable energy should drive government decisions about what kind of manufacturing to prioritise.
The ones that would seem to at least potentially qualify would be steel, aluminium, possibly cement, possibly ammonia, or even aviation fuel.
Sanjeev Gupta, the British billionaire industrialist who bought the Whyalla Steelworks out of administration and is also investing in solar energy, says Australia is still missing out by exporting bulk iron ore.
Australia exports enough iron ore to make 500 million tonnes of steel. We don't even make 1% of that at home in Australia at the moment. So there's clearly a great opportunity, especially as demand increases. Demand is expected to double in the next 30 years.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
His steelworks in Western Sydney is focused on melting down scrap metal and turning it into new products. And in time, the company hopes to be an early adopter of hydrogen-fired steelmaking, the last step in powering the whole process with renewables.
I don't want to be the energy wet blanket here, but what we need to be very mindful of is that some of these alternates are in the early stages and they aren't going to happen overnight. We still need to be looking at developing our hydrogen industry and putting a lot of resources into developing that capacity.
The complexity of making things is measured in the Economic Complexity Index, the ability of a country to make things. And Australia ranks between Pakistan and Senegal. We can be better than that. We have proven ourselves in the crisis, but we need to gain scale to be a smarter country, not a luckier country.
Hi, I'm Lee Sales. Thanks for watching this story. If you'd like to watch more of 730's stories, they are on the left of your screen. And tap on the button below to subscribe and get the latest from ABC News.